Yes, we have 9 attendees and 6 panelists. I think we're ready to go.
I think one of the panelists is actually an attendee.
Okay, the presentation's ready to go. So if you're ready, Kelly.
Good.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Simon Fraser, the Executive Director for AusCham, and this morning, as we do on a regular basis, we'll be holding our AusCham chats. Normally, we would have this at the old campus in District 1, but obviously for COVID-19 and regulations as stipulated by the government, this is changed to an online format. So I hope you enjoy this morning, and we'll try and make it as interactive as possible. I'd like to hand over to Kelly Bow.
Thank you, Simon. Can you move to the next slide?
It won't do. It won't do.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So I hope you are doing well and fine, doing the social distance now, and also balance well with all the constant change at the moment. Thank you, Simon, to share about the event today. As you know, we now have to move it online. So I hope you will enjoy the new format. So I just go quickly about the agenda for today, and then I will hand it over to the speaker to share their experience and insight about how to work online, like on the topic today. So me and the AusCham will say a little bit quickly about the introduction, and then we're gonna go to the speaker presentation. And then at the end, we will have the discussion part where you can ask your question, and then for the panelists, and the panelists will answer the question. So please keep in mind that please mute your microphone, and please, if you have any question, just write it in the chat box. Me and Simon will control the chat box and share the question with the speaker later when we go to the discussion part. And after that, we will have a quick conclusion from the webinar today. Yeah, thank you. Can you go to the next slide, Simon? Yeah, so now I pass it back to Simon to share a little bit about AusCham and the membership at AusCham. Yeah. Simon?
Sorry, thank you, Kelly. Just a couple of technical issues there. So thank you very much for that introduction, so that we can see what we'll be doing today and obviously who will be speaking. For AusCham to support Lynn, this is very important to us, and it's been an ongoing relationship for quite some time. AusCham is a not-for-profit. We've been in Vietnam now for over 21 years. Working actively with the business community and Australians wanting to do business here in Vietnam. We also work very closely with advocacy through the Australian government and also VBF, and work closely with the BCCI. So if you're interested to know more about what AusCham are doing, we'd be happy to talk to you about a membership or some type of involvement in what we're doing on a daily and also yearly basis. There's some email address there, and also our website, which you can contact, and we'd be very happy to have an open discussion and also share more information with you. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Simon. if you already know me, I share a little bit about Lynn and myself before, but somebody who haven't, we haven't got a chance to meet. My name is Kelly. I am working at the local nonprofit named Center for Community Development. As Simon has mentioned, that we have a very good and long-term relationship with AusCham, so that's why we decided to work together on this AusCham chat every month to share on the particular topic that interests the members and everybody from the public actually. We are a local nonprofit here running in Vietnam for 10 years now. We support other local nonprofit with our capacity building, networking and resources, and also work with like business and individual donor to bring them all together, facilitate the partnership. So if you're interested more about Lynn, feel free to drop me an email. My email address is on the screen. And also we also encourage, if you are interested in donate to Lynn and our causes, you can ask me for the bank account, or also can donate directly to us on Global Giving. Yep. Thank you. So can you also move to the next slide, Simon? Yeah, so as I mentioned, my name is Kelly. I'm currently at the head of corporate partnership and fundraising at Lynn. So my main role is working with corporate partners and do fundraising activity, raising fund for our program and our organization. So we have 3 speakers today from AusCham. So maybe I just want to ask every speaker each speaker just to say quickly introduction and say hello to everybody in the audience today. Matthew, you want to say hello first?
Oh, okay. Hello. Well, I'm Matthew Lourey. I'm the managing partner at Domicile Corporate Services, providing market entry, accounting, tax, payroll, compliance, transactions for foreign invested businesses. I've been involved with AusCham for a long time. I'm a former president, former treasurer, and former board member. So I'm happy to be involved in this chats that we've been running this year, and look forward to further chats in the future. Today focusing on communication, particularly at the moment, and what we can learn from it, what works, and look forward to sharing.
Thank you, Matthew. Brian, you want to say quickly introduction about yourself?
Hi, my name is Brian O'Reilly. I'm the MBA program coordinator at the Vietnamese-German University, and also a board member for the Australian Chamber of Commerce. So obviously in all of those roles, having to work virtually from home has been a challenge, and that's why we decided to have this workshop today to help people better cope with the challenging and changing environment. Welcome everybody.
Thank you, Brian. Matt?
Yeah, hi everybody. Matt Young. I am the Principal and General Director at GSA, which is an architectural group here in Vietnam. I've been in the country for 8 years, working in Vietnam. During that time, I've done a lot of work between Australia and Vietnam and handled some of this technology that we're using today. I know some of the drawbacks, and so I'll be happy to share some of those with you, but also some of the successes. And it's just great to have 12 attendees online in a chat like this. It's not so easy to get the word out and get people interested. So thank you to all the attendees for dropping by.
Thank you, Matt. So now I think we're gonna go jump into the sharing and presentation from each speaker. So I will pass it to Brian to start his first presentation. Yeah, Brian.
Okay, me again. Hello, everybody. Communication, or effective communication, is important at any time in an organization. But of course, now that most people have to work remotely, and it's very important to try and adapt your communication to make sure that your organization can run as effectively as possible in these what would you say, are quite challenging times, are very challenging for some people. So I just put up a few points here, and this is for everybody, but particularly for leaders in organizations. You need to get the message out to your staff, to your team quite early about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Talk to them about what would work best for them. And we are very lucky to have technology now that we wouldn't have had 20 or 30 years ago to help with communication. So what I would say is basically try and create regular schedules with your staff, look at the most effective means of communication and see what works best for different people. So for somebody like myself, I like talking, so I'm not a big long email person. I would rather get on the phone or talk to people. So think about that with your staff. Information is, as I say, very, very important. And long before coronavirus came along, I have said that in the age where we have got so many tools for communication, I believe that a communication is not very effective these days. So back when I was a younger person, you had to think about communication very seriously because you only had phones and faxes and memos if you're working in a company. So basically, all I'd ask people to do is think a lot more serious about communication and try and make, use the tools, but think about the different tools or modes of communication you can use and which are more effective in what circumstances. Now, communication obviously is about connecting. And whilst we all know we have to connect and talk about what we need to do on a day-to-day basis, the coronavirus for some people and for quite a few people maybe is causing a bit of stress. People are working from home. People are worried about their jobs. People are not able to get things done. So remember, as well as the formal technical communication, it's also very important to keep in contact with people so that, if they are having problems, that at least you can talk to them about it. So remember, there's a very human, very emotional aspect to this. And working from a distance in what are, as we say, trying times, take that into consideration. And of course, the last point I've got here is about clear communication for everybody. And I think it's just important that think about, each day or each week, who do I need to communicate? What do I need to communicate with them? When do I need to communicate with it? What's the best method of communication? So don't be sending emails to everybody with everything or expecting that emails or text messages or WhatsApp does everything. Think about who do you want to communicate with? What's the purpose or goal of the communication? What's the best way to communicate? So keep in touch with your staff. I'm not going to mention any particular software, but you can use platforms where you can store files, you can work on files in real time, and all of that can help to keep people close together, to help people not to get too down and out about what's going on, and to try and keep the organization running as effectively as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. I think you're sharing something very important to keep in mind for all of us. Even we do a social distance, but we can always connect it online. So that's why it's great to keep in touch with our college and our friends. So you're right about, these days we have so much platform and technology. So sometimes it may be confused, and also it's not really suitable for everybody for the same tool. So that's why I think it's important to have that kind of mindfulness when we using the technology tools and everything, that makes sure everybody happy with that and comfortable with that, right? So I think with that in mind, I want to pass it to the move it to Matthew Lourey to share more about how we can use technology or can work from home online effectively with everybody here. Yeah, Matthew.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. This online communication where we are now, it's actually an extension of the corporate culture that you have. So we don't just create something new. We don't just go, oh, we're online, we're working remotely, let's create something new. It's an extension. So take the values, take the cultural elements to your business and use that as part of where you take this communication with your teams and your clients. There's two ways to look at it. It's the outside and the internal. So the first point there is the netiquette. There needs to be a communication protocol, and this netiquette, it's a catchphrase, but again, following on from how would you communicate internally, you want to follow it on. You want to keep this comfort, you want to keep this idea of connected, and you want to keep this consistency. So if you follow normal approaches and don't just recreate everything, you'll be significantly more comfortable and things will flow. It's been proven that productivity generally decreases working from home, but that doesn't have to apply to your business. I had discussions yesterday with my team, and we're looking at productivity having increased in recent days, which is quite strange. If you can do these properly, you can actually get some great positive benefits. One of the keys for distance and to remove it is this speed of response. If clients are contacting you and, oh, they're not in their office, oh, they respond, oh, I'm getting response. It makes them feel comfortable. It makes staff feel comfortable if there's questions and answers, emails, messages, as Brian says, plenty of platforms. I think Matt's going to talk about that shortly. But responding in a positive, prompt manner and being available creates comfort again, and comfort creates opportunity, means people aren't stressed, and it means you will be productive. The tone, if people can't just next to them reach over, talk to someone in the office, in their cubicles, in the meeting rooms, you can't just quickly do a face-to-face. We find that tone, written tone is really critical to get it right, because verbal, you can judge someone's expressions, you can judge someone's face, but it's much harder to judge if you're typing it. And if you're typing angry, someone may not see it. If you're typing passive, someone may see anger. So making sure people understand their tone in that right needs to be careful. So neutral tone, neutral writing is really important. The thorough responses. So you don't have the ability to just, oh, can I just check what's going on? I just ask someone, I'll reach over the divider, or go to the other room, I'll talk to my colleagues. And from a colleague's perspective, the thorough responses, and to clients as well, because they're working at home. They're often not in the office, and most of our countries we're dealing with, it's the same as Vietnam, if not stricter. So this idea of making sure it's thorough, you don't have to be pedantic, you don't have to be over the top, but you must assume there'll be less chance for a quick follow-up or clarification. So be careful, provide thorough, don't just do short and go, oh, they'll work it out for themselves. Give guidance. You want to make sure people feel connected. And this then goes through the follow-ups and chats, making sure people that you're talking to, not only in the day-to-day, that your touch points in the morning and the evening and those sort of touch points, and it's also making sure that you follow up, did you understand any more questions? I'm available for a call. I'm available for a chat. Is it all clear? Or did you get that? Making sure people know that you're there to look after them and that they aren't on their own. And if you can bring that together, you've got a tool and a platform where you can make people feel comfortable. You've got that culture, you've got the appropriate approach, you've got this communication responsiveness, and you've got this care. So in that sort of communication package, you can have a process which you can be more productive and not less productive in an office, and feel that people are part of a team and they feel like they are working together. So that's, I'll talk about in this slide, and obviously we'll talk more of this in this group discussion we'll got going in a moment, but I'll hand back to Kelly now to move on to the next slide.
Thank you, Matthew. So thank you for a very interesting sharing about, how to be positive during the trying time, and need to be very thoughtful about what we communicate to our team and our college, right? So I think, now we have to move everything online. So now we also need to do a lot of things to make sure the message is clear when we write something. So I think maybe that's a good chance for us to improve our writing skill too, not just speaking skill, right? Very interesting. So thank you. And then I think, now we talk about, Matthew just share about, online communication, how to make it very effective and work for you. I think also the next things we need to share or listen to is that, nowadays we have, everybody working from different places, like different time zone, different cultures, like everybody have their own sub-team, subgroup working together. So that is also critical to have the right tool and also the approach about how to work like a virtual team together, like how to bring everybody together as a team. So I will pass this to Matt to share more about how we can make this work in terms of virtual team and different team working together.
Hi guys, thank you very much, Kelly. Thanks, Matt. A lot of what I say follows on from what Brian and Matt have said, and there's going to be a bit of repeating because the essence is the same. It's all about communication. It's about keeping that communication even though we're physically apart. So the first thing I'd like to point out is make sure it's the right team that you're talking to. I have noticed a habit since we've gone into online where meetings have been called and people have just hit up the 50 email recipients that are required, that were required to be informed that there was a meeting, and suddenly you've got 50 people trying to log on, talk, not mute their microphones, etc. Be very focused about the kind of team that you want to put together for the meeting. If people need to know the meeting's on, but they don't need to attend, don't send them the meeting invite. Just send the meeting invite to the people who are required to attend. That's really important. That will save you a lot of time. The right type of meeting as well. So we're currently in one type of meeting, which is a webinar, which is a presentation, question and answer format. This kind of works very well for when you're presenting a project, a pitch, etc., all those kinds of things, or a discussion such as this. But there are so many other types of meetings, and I think a lot of people have assumed everything's a meeting now, and I guess it is. But a meeting can be as simple as just a FaceTime chat or a Zoom or Skype or whatever to someone in your office and saying, "Hey, how are you going? What are you guys up to this morning? You're at home." It can replace that office chat by the cooler. It can replace that tap on the shoulder to see how someone's going. That's also a meeting. But it's a very different type of meeting. It's got a different tone. It's more a friendly meeting. Then you can have that little group chat where it's also a little bit more relaxed and it's just between friends. And again, this can take place on your phone, it can take place on your laptop, but it replaces those kinds of casual interactions that you have in the office. And then you have the more formal meetings, and you should prepare for those more formal meetings like you would for a meeting of somebody coming to your office and sitting in your boardroom, for example. So you have to have your presentation equipment there. You have to have ability to transfer information. So you might change the software. You have to look at, whether you need to be able to draw on screen, mark up notes, type in items into minutes, etc. So that type of meeting, you have to be prepared for each. Some are as simple as a chat, and some are as complex as having shared screens and pushing information back and forth, multiple participants talking at once. The right structure. So that's basically what I'm talking about in those types of meetings. You don't get onto a formal chat, a chat with someone in your office and say, "Okay, right now we're going to discuss these 5 items and we're going to do it in order." You just have a chat. But other times, if you've got, for example, we've got an AGM coming up that's virtual tonight, you still need to push that agenda out beforehand. You still need to have that agenda available on screen. Everybody needs to have access to the same information, and you need to follow a process. And none of that changes when you're online. And I guess that's my big takeaway is online is a virtual representation of the face-to-face experience. And that's why so much software has the word face or meet up or hang out or catch up or these kinds of words, because they're trying to bring it back to a face-to-face experience. So make sure that you've got that. The right technology. Now this one is really interesting. I've been doing virtual meetings for about 7 years now between Australia and Vietnam. Sometimes I've got people calling in from Kuala Lumpur. I'm sitting in an office in Ho Chi Minh. I've got a client sitting in Hanoi, and I've got an Australian team member coming in. And this is all available to us now. Now, by the right technology, I just don't mean the software, and I will touch on software in a little bit. I bought myself a little speaker. It's a noise cancelling speaker that plugs into my laptop. It means whenever I have a virtual meeting, I have crystal clear audio. There's nothing more annoying than bad audio or somebody using their laptop and they get the feedback loop. Or, so a lot of people are asked to wear headphones because headphones work a lot better. I use a noise cancelling speakerphone. I find it more natural than wearing headphones. And also, if I have somebody else in the room, it's obviously a lot better than 7 people sitting around the room with headphones on. But do make sure you've got the right technology. Make sure that you've got a good camera. If you don't have a camera, get a webcam, etc. It will make your life easier. With regards to software, that comes back to the right type of meeting and the right team again. So obviously for us here at AusCham, we found Zoom's an excellent resource because it's easy for people to join. You don't need a subscription to join. It's got on-screen markup, it's got shared screen, it's got the chat facility. It's a good one. A lot of offices are now using Microsoft Teams. That's something that my office is using. Very good. It's got chat file. It's got a better file sharing thing. It stays online. It also has the video chats in there. That might be the answer. I can go through hundreds. Google Hangouts are very good. There's also online drives, SharePoint, Google Drive, etc. All these kinds of ideas for sharing information. This is replacing walking over with a piece of paper and putting it on someone's desk. And we all know in an office you have to walk across and put something on people's desk. So it's a matter of getting the right technology, not just from the software. And if you want more information about software and anyone wants to drop me a line, I can tell you hundreds of different software that have come across my desk. I use everything from Viber, from quick chats, to WhatsApp, to right up to Zoom, you know, to a full professional package. And it's a matter of getting that right, but it's also the right technology to make your life easier. You know, buy yourself a speaker, buy yourself a headset for an investment of probably, you know, 1 to 2 million dong. You've got better audio, you've got better visual, and that's going to make your life easier. The only third thing I might suggest, if you're sitting at home for long periods of time now and you're on a laptop, if you're tall like me, you're going to get a really sore neck. So I'd suggest you invest in a second screen that raises your head up. That's more a health warning than a meeting warning, but it also makes meetings easier because you can have your shared screen on one screen and you can see people on the other, and that makes it more human as well. So that's just a couple of the technical things that I find about Teams. Just recapping, make sure you've got the right team. Don't invite people who don't need to be there. You're wasting their time that they could otherwise be productive. And as Matt said, if we do it right, productivity can go up. We've found that too. The right type of meeting, make sure that it's, you know, got the right tone, whether it's casual, formal, or a presentation. Get the right structure, make sure you've got all your ducks in a row, all your presentation materials, if you need them, and the right technology. Make sure you're clear, you've tested the equipment, and that you're good to go. Nothing worse than having an important client and no audio. So very, very important there. And as Brian said, it's all about keeping that communication. You know, this is just replacing what we have in the office. Make it feel human, make it feel real, and be honest with each other, just like you would in the office, and make a human connection. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you, Matt. It's very interesting about, you know, how to make sure everything is right during this time, because otherwise people will feel overwhelmed and confused. So that's really difficult, I think. So just a quick reminder for everybody. Now, I think we're gonna move to this discussion. So if you have any question, feel free to put that in the chat box. I will raise that question to the speaker. So before that, I'm gonna just also ask my own question for the prepared question for the panelists. So Matt, I think, you know, you just shared that, so I want to ask the one question right away for your sharing is that, you know, it's just amazing to have that kind of structure in terms of right team, right meeting, right structure, right technology, but maybe you can share a little bit with us more here about how you can do that kind of define, identify, and develop that, and how you can implement that without making people feel, you know, overwhelmed, or they know this is why we need it, for example. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Okay, well, actually, those kinds of things will come quite naturally to you if you consider it as an office environment. So when I say the right team and right structure, consider how you would treat it in the office. If you're walking across to somebody's desk to have a chat to them, what are they up to now? That can be a phone call, that can be a quick video chat on your phone, it can even be a text message on Viber or whatever. It's just checking in. If it's to be a meeting in the boardroom, then you're going to start treating it more like a boardroom. So you're going to use, you know, webinar software like Zoom or Skype or Cisco or WebEx or whatever it is. So you just need to find the right tool and the right feeling for each kind of interaction. Think about your day at an office and the different kind of interactions you have every day. If you pitch your level at that kind of interaction, that should be your guide. People still need just a tap on the shoulder to say, hey, you're doing a good job. It doesn't need to be a formal meeting that's been, calendarized and set up, and at 9:30 on Monday morning, I shall tell every team leader they're doing a good job. No, you can reach out at any time and say, hey, thanks for getting that done. I noticed you got it done a couple of hours before the deadline. Fantastic. That can be an email, that can be a phone message, can be Viber. And the kids like messages these days. I tend to find myself texting most of my staff, particularly my senior leaders, daily, just to check in on them, see how they're going, etc. Other platforms such as Microsoft Teamwork allow you different kinds of interactions, video, text, etc. And I find that there are messages we send to teams, and then there are messages we send just to individuals, and then there are messages that we need to do via group video chat. So even in this, you could send me a text message right now, just directly to me, saying, hey, Matt, that makes sense, or you're talking too long, shut up. And all these things can be done.
Thank you, Matt. That's very interesting about how you can imagine what you normally do every day offline and now move it to online. Make sure that we have the right thing, right technology to implement that. So then I have a next question is for Brian, because I think it's about a topic today is about communication. Why is communication effective? Communication is important. So Brian, can you share with us about why effective communication is always very important, and why it's even more important during this crisis time?
Okay, I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly. I forgot about unmuting. I'd like to use a practical example of this, of course, because I sometimes do a bit of lecturing, and I had a class, a project management class that I had to deliver online, and what apart from getting the right technology, and it's very important to get the right technology, I had to try and think, how do I try and create a classroom atmosphere in a virtual setting? And some of what I said earlier was about the confidence of the students in using online technology. And what I found actually was, one, of course, getting used to the technical aspects of the technology is important. And whilst I prepared as much as possible in advance, obviously there was a few teething problems and we got over them. But I think it was, on the negative side, it was, well, I hadn't met these students face to face. So here's a stranger coming to spend 2 weeks with them doing this lecturing. But I found that on the positive side, once we got used to the technology, it could break them into teams. I could work with teams. We ended up getting away from email and just using the platform, either texting or talking. And Matt mentioned Google, or one of the Matts mentioned Google Chrome, or so I actually use Google as a platform for all the documents. So it was about thinking about, well, how do I need to communicate with these people, and how do I change it, adapt it to get the best possible result? And funny enough, just to finish on a positive, I think we found that, as I said to the students, I am not going anywhere. So basically, if you send me a message, I usually can get back onto you, either text you, or we can have a quick call where we're talking to each other. And I think we all got used to very quickly the new way of doing things, and actually compensated quite a lot for not having the face-to-face by using the technology and communication styles and methods quite effectively. So it actually turned out to be quite a pleasant, positive experience. And to finish off, I had 3 great team presentations from each group of students, which was really impressive to see that the students could really actually work very, very effectively in this new environment.
That's great. Thank Brian. But I think, you know what, I mean, even you say that, you know, communicate online these days with your student, with your current, like, you know, work, is that also help you see a lot of like possibility around online communication and the bright side of it. But I also think that there's also a lot of problem working virtually with your student, or communicate with them virtually. I bet you already counter those kind of problem already. So if you have some sort of like insight and experience, just feel free to share with us how you overcome that problem working with the student virtually.
Yeah, I think I was lucky with a bunch of students, okay, but it was also at the very early stage I used email to get the information to them, give all the PowerPoints, the course guide, etc., etc. But at the very first day it was like a plane taking off. You had to sort of get down that runway, and eventually everybody was up in the sky. But I feel that, as we say, the leader in this situation, it was my job to help them to become motivated, to encourage them, to make them feel safe and say to them, listen, guys, we're going to overcome any problems we can see. And all I said to them was, if you guys turn up and do the work, I will make sure you all come out of this as winners. So I think in the workplace, whether in my particular situation or any situation, as a leader, it's up to you to make sure that people can feel comfortable. Now, I am not saying there are situations, other situations, not this particular class, where people aren't quite as willing to embrace the new way of doing things, and that can be a problem. So I think one of the problems people are going to face is that not everybody in your organization or your clients or whoever are going to be as keen on using new and different ways. So you have to be aware that, yeah, some people will be resistant, and that's a problem with change. So you have to, but try and make people feel comfortable, try and take the fear away, and create an environment where people know we'll get the results, but we have to do a few things differently. And we will make some mistakes along the way, but we'll fix those mistakes eventually.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I think we have a few questions from the audience now, so I can just share that with the panelists. There's a new question from Matt Young. So this question is about, I am after a platform for easy interaction like networking or team bonding. Zoom has breakout room, but looking for an easy way to engage. Thanks.
Okay, so my first answer to that is the easiest thing is the thing people are used to working in the most. So if your whole staff are already on Zoom, then yeah, have a look at Zoom breakout room, etc. However, my experience is my office is on Office 365. So what we've found is Microsoft Teams is a free part of that. We're allowed to download that. And for simple interactions, that one's very good because you can actually just drop your staff list into it and you create one chat for the whole group. And then within that one group, you can click on any one person and call up a private chat. As soon as you type something to them, it comes up as a private chat between you and them. As soon as you do a video, you've started a new channel with them. So we've found Teams to be very effective. Other people, I'm staying in contact via Skype. And Skype also, a lot of people have a lot of familiarity with it. So I leave Skype on all day and it brings up something, and sometimes it's somebody making a call, sometimes it's somebody just texting me. There's one blinking at me right now. It's a little bit distracting because I know exactly what it's about. So that's another good way to stay in touch through Skype. And that's easy because you can actually add people to a conversation while you're having it. Both of those platforms, you can invite another attendee. So if I'm having a chat to one of my staff members and we say, really, we should get Hung in on this discussion, it's as simple as saying add Hung to the discussion, and suddenly his video camera's up and he's chatting, and we find that one's really good. Regards team bonding, both Zoom and Microsoft Teams I find very, very good, because you can have, if you go to gallery view, you can see everybody's picture there. We had Easter Thursday drinks with the landscape team in Australia the other day. Everybody was at home taking us tours through their home. Some were on phones, some were on laptops, and everyone had a glass of wine. So you can absolutely keep that more relaxed breakout kind of feel. Without speaking to you directly, it's a little hard to answer beyond that. I think Matt Lourey might have something to say on that as well, because he's pretty familiar with these kinds of ideas.
Thanks, Matt. I found Teams is really useful if you've got Office 365, but Teams by itself is quite useful to create separate rooms or separate areas. So we have a stream for marketing, a stream for general communication, and so that you actually end up having multiple, as it's called, teams, a whole lot of different communications all happening just for those who are relevant. So you're earlier about this email, only email relevance. Yeah, email is a lot for client communications, a lot for sort of more formal, but the less formal, the more social interactions often happens within teams of teams of teams that you actually create. So one of the things when we set up teams was to do, and there's a person responsible in our office, is to make sure that we triage and have the appropriate subgroups that we share communications with, so that you're not bombarding, but everyone has access. And the way you set it up, some are optional. You don't get notified. You go and find them. Others you get notified of. And so you can use Teams as a way to have a quite a structured or informal way of chatting, communicating, and going through a sort of a social bonding process with them. And so I find that works very well.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Matt on that one. It very much is about getting those right people in there to socially interact, and that's spot on, Matt. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. I think while you're on that topic about creating shop team and make sure everybody in the right room, can you also give us some example? Because you share about working online effectively. So I think you have a lot of experience around how to create like a unit way to keep the team inspired and engaged when they're working remotely like this. Yeah, can you share with us?
Okay, yeah. Well, in Vietnam, we actually face a lot of staff is they don't have spaces at home that are conducive to work. This is a big challenge in Vietnam. So in the West, yeah, we might have houses, might have studies. That's not always the case. So it is challenging trying to make people feel that they can work at home. And the other one is that we're social beings. We want to socialize, we want to be around. So yeah, there are challenges. So this idea of having structure, letting the people have structure. So some of my separate teams will have a morning conference call and an evening conference call with all their staff. And that's their touch points. So those touch points every day, they have a morning and evening. And if someone's not available, they'll reach out. Is there a problem? Are you okay? And it creates this protection to know that they're okay, that people are looking out for them. So there are ways to do that sort of structure. A unique way that I recently did, and I've got to do another version later this morning, is we do some prizes, some games. One of the ones we did last week was we did photo challenges. Said I've set 3 challenges. I want a photo of the best use of smaller space, photo of relaxing at work, a photo of something creative about your home working environment. So we got a bunch of photos from staff about what, something they're proud of. They shared them. We can all see where everyone else is working. We shared the photos. So I gave some cash prizes, and then we all can see what everyone else is doing. We can then be a little bit closer to everyone because we can see the unique working places where everyone has to work from. And no one's the same. Everyone has very different sort of working environments. And by understanding that, we can get closer to each other. It allows that social interaction by using visual, and also gives a chance to win prizes. It makes a bit of fun and keeps that connection, because you have to be creative if you're not in the office. In the office, you can be it's much easier to do things. And I note there was sort of a question on there that Kevin Fitzgerald has posted about where this is after COVID. Will we go back to what we do now? I think we'll all learn from that, and some of these techniques will allow us to have more flexibility, and I'll sort of Kelly and the panelists go through the question in particular, but some of these techniques we're using now will be able to be used in the future. We've never needed to necessarily come across until this COVID issue came up, but we will probably use them because you want to have ways to maximize that social interaction, maximize productivity, maximize staff comfort and communication techniques. So it's a new world we are creating. So be creative in what you are doing. Don't just do the normal as you would do in the office and assume that will work. Be creative.
Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, I think
Can I jump in and answer Kevin's as well, since Matt started it off? Kevin, I think it's a really good question. Is it going to remain in place on the other side, or will it be returning to what was previously considered normal? I actually think you're going to see a lot more accountability from those of us who travel a lot. I think gone are the days it's like, I'm off to Hanoi, I won't be in contact for the next 24 hours, you can leave me some messages, I'll check in. We all know now just how accessible we are to everybody. And truth be told, I can check in very well and check things in a taxi on my phone, connected either to my laptop or connected to my, or on my phone itself. So I think what you're going to see is, even if somebody's not physically in the office, they'll expect it to be engaging as if they were. I think travel will reduce, so that will be one thing. I also think what you'll see is a reaction to people's health in general. And if people are unwell, they'll be expected to go home. I don't think you'll see an expansion in sick leave, but what you will see is an expansion in people saying, look, you've got a bit of a cough, look, don't come into the office. We're going to be overcautious, please work from home. And then the other thing you're going to obviously see is a huge expansion in cloud services so that people can effectively access their server from any point. The biggest problem we originally had was transferring files because we have some fairly heavy files in my business, so they're sitting on a large server and transferring them over the internet isn't ideal. And we've had to come up with 3 or 4 solutions for that. And that's now sorted. So now there's no excuse if you're at home going, I can't get the file. Yes, you can. So I think, yes, you will definitely see some hangovers. Obviously, people are social creatures. There's a reason why so many people are breaking quarantine. They need to see each other, and that comes into a question that is coming up about networking. But absolutely, you'll see a greater level of responsibility for people out of the office to continue to engage. So in fact, it may lift productivity and it may actually add to some stress because there's no hiding anymore. And that is actually something we're going to have to deal with. I've already had directors in Australia complaining that they don't get to go home and turn off because home is the office now. And they're finding it very, very stressful. Of like, you know, I used to go 10 o'clock at night, it's late enough, I'm going home, this is my home, this is my sanctuary, and they're not finding a sanctuary. And we are going to have to deal with that as well.
Thank you, Matt. How about Brian? Do you have any thought on that for the question from Kevin?
I think very briefly, and I'm not a technological expert, as most of you know, but we all talked about the digital world, Industry 4.0, et cetera, but we're actually only paying lip service to all of this. Not many people are taking it too seriously. And I think now people are going to have a lot more serious look at how they actually operate and to use technology a lot more effectively. And what Matt said about something like sick leave, you know, there's nothing worse than somebody coming into an air-conditioned office with a head cold, and then everybody gets the head cold. So I can work from home probably 80% effectively, you know. So I think the companies that embrace all of this will get ahead, and the ones that try and go back to the status quo before this will get left behind.
Thank you, Brian. Do we have any other question from the audience so far?
We have 3 questions on the chat file.
Okay. Can you share that with me?
Okay, first one from Chen Win.
Yeah.
All panelists, are there any general business networking chats that are coming up so we can join and get more experience? Well, there's this one, Chien, and thanks for joining. I don't know, but if any come up, we'll take that on board, and we will push out some general chats coming up through the AusCham social media, through Facebook, through LinkedIn, and through email updates, and we'll make sure that we get links to you for as many of those chats as humanly possible. Anyone else got anything to say about that?
Yeah, just on that, I'm getting a lot of emails where we're seeing industrial parks, we're seeing the other business chambers, we're seeing real estate companies all moving their client interactivity to online. They can't do the private meetings, they can't do the catch up over a beer and have a drink, they can't do the formal seminars. Everyone's now moving very quickly and realizing this is the new normal for the time being. And this particular way of communicating may be the common, to answer Kevin's question, into the future. It may be the best way to attract a broad audience, because not everyone on this, normally we would do this in Ho Chi Minh City on a Tuesday morning. Not everyone's in Ho Chi Minh City now, and it does broaden and give opportunities to do these. So Tin, there are lots of them around, and it's part of it's being on spam lists, and all of a sudden they're becoming interesting and useful. The business chambers are all doing that. So I've got at least one more this week I'm presenting at, and this is happening. But you will find there's one difference is that very short lead times. You no longer have a 1 month warning for calendars of upcoming events. They're 1 week. And that's the big difference this is leading.
Sometimes they're tomorrow.
True.
Thank you, Matthew. So how about Brian, or we have any other question from the audience? Sorry, I don't see that.
We have 2 additional questions, but Brian, did you want to say something about upcoming chats, or Simon? I'll take that as a no.
Sorry, William. No, sorry, I forget that I have to press the bar to get unmute. No, William mentioned about external networking, and I think you'll find that I've said that we're looking at options for. Simon has come up with an idea of a virtual sundowners and other options there. We're also looking, William, at committees in AusCham, and one would be education and training, and I think, you know, those subcommittees we could have a lot of communication using, you know, what would you say, the online communication. So it's work in progress, but as Matthew Lourey said, other companies are changing, and we will look at opportunities to change as well.
External networking is really interesting, and it's something that is more than just sundowners. AusCham will be hopefully doing an online sundowner this month. It's yet to be decided. We've got a board meeting tonight, but we're all very hopeful that we can come up with some kind of version of that, William. I don't know what business you're in, but I will say this is a good time to leverage your chamber. The best networking is where you get to present yourself in the best light. So what you're seeing is a lot of businesses are now doing things like this, webinars, etc., but specific to their industry. So I've had, I work in architecture, so I've had people saying, look, we've got a bunch of expertise in retail design, so we're going to be holding an online webinar for anybody who's interested. And then they're pumping that out through their local business chambers, through their local networks, through their own email chains. And then people getting in to listen, and they're getting to listen to them with a sense of focus. And you can actually hijack the technology to make that work for you, because you're not getting out pressing the flesh, shaking hands and having a beer together. But what you are actually doing is getting to present your expertise, and that's probably more likely to get you a business inquiry sometimes than having a beer with somebody. So I'm not discounting any type of networking, but it's a new style of networking, and it's about getting out there. And it doesn't just have to be video chats. Networking can be, you know, pushing out knowledge documents, making sure people are popping into your website or asking you questions. So, you know, for example, you might put out a document about a product you have, but you don't give all the information. You try and get people to call you back, etc. And you make it as simple as a Viber chat. You know, just message me or do it on Facebook. I think one thing Vietnam's extremely good at is utilizing Facebook for businesses. And you're going to see that become even more so right now. So there's a form of networking. I mean, we all know it's a social network. That's what they call these sites. So through Twitter, through Facebook, through even TikTok and these crazy things, you're going to see more push out through that virtual there, and that's already happening. So yeah, just to expand it from just a simple sundowner and replacing it, it's not always replacement, sometimes it's an alternative. If you're going to be doing a webinar or something like that, feel free to let AusCham know as a member, and we'll push your webinar through the AusCham social media, and hopefully get you more attendees. That's just one way the chamber can support our members, and we're very happy to do so. That's kind of the point.
Thank you, Matt. I saw a few more questions from the audience now, and I think it's this question is for Matthew, and I think it's related to what you just shared about now everybody moving online with like alternative online conference and everything. So the question for Matthew is, video conference is widely used, yet technical error like weak connection, too many people make the connection unstable. So make some member unable to catch up with the meeting at their best. So do you have any tip or guide to improve this situation? And also the audience, the participant want to hear more about the netiquette that you just shared earlier.
Thanks, Kelly. So I'll start with the netiquette question. So netiquette involves things like in meetings, as we're doing today, muting if not talking. It's having the organizer, whoever the host, let them speak, not over talking. And it's the communication protocols that allow meetings to function where face to face, you can, you know, it's just natural. We just communicate naturally. There will be a leader, but meetings just work. With technology and meeting into the technology question, it doesn't work the same. Microphones auto cut off. Only one person is really talking at once, otherwise you don't hear anyone else. That's netiquette. Netiquette is making sure that you understand your role in a meeting and that you respect that. If everyone has microphones on, you've got children yelling in the background, you've got people running around, there's a car going, there's an ambulance coming past, all of those, and we've all had those meetings, make them less functional, who's in charge, someone talking over. So it's tools like this into technology allowing you to raise your hand, type a question. It allows the etiquette, the netiquette of the meetings to make them productive. So you can have a 20-minute meeting and not a 2-hour meeting and achieve a lot more. Another thing to keep in mind is netiquette is time zones. I think Matt was touching on it before, is that people feel like they're always at work. So don't try to push meetings late. Everyone's going to be around home. We'll just have a meeting. It's 8 o'clock at night. We'll get everyone together. I've got some clients that do that. They're always connected. They're in Singapore and not allowed to go to the office, and they're just all sitting on a Zoom call at all times, and they'll just jump and say, can you jump on? Netiquette is about respecting also working times, and you might have time zones in different countries where you have to do that, but that's normal. But making sure that it's not a compulsory part, that you are always connected. So keeping working hours, keeping the right approach using the technology. Moving on to the weakness in technology, it is an issue. Some people's connections aren't strong. It's not about the number of people using it, it's using Zoom. Zoom is a back-end server, Skype's a back-end server. That doesn't make the difference. The difference is going to be your physical connection with your internet provider and what it is in your building, partly of what you pay for and the provider's use of their bandwidth and how it works. So a couple of those techniques are, if you're at home and you're doing this, get your kids to turn off their YouTube. Limit that. You can prioritize, if you know what you're doing, or your IT person through your router to prioritize video calls, and you can prioritize certain elements and certain attributes if you want to do that. The other one to do it is, and we do this for staff, is you give a communication allowance. You might increase that allowance when you're at home, and so they can have a better data plan. Because you find, even when these sharks cut cables and some home connections work and some office connections, because they're the way they are, may not be as affected, but you'll generally find that the mobile phone, the cell phone receptions are stronger and they don't have that same width. And when it's just you using your cell connection, no one else can use that in the house. Your kids, your people that you share with can't be using YouTube, your cell phone, because it's just you. So that's one of those alternates. The final thing is, if you don't need video, turn your video off, because video is not always necessary. You might start, have a chat, see everyone smile, but you might, if it's just a group chat, and maybe just the presenter talks. Maybe actually the size of your video. So you can actually make it a very low video quality to save bandwidth. So there's probably some comments whether Brian or Matt want to add anything else to that.
No further comment from me, Matt. I think you've nailed it. Interesting enough, you dropped out for me for 2 seconds during that just to prove a point.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. My screen did pop up saying internet unstable. So I think my child's probably on YouTube right now, which is the exact thing I said not to be.
Have to turn off the video. Yeah, so thank you, Matthew. So I think the next question is very interesting from Min. So the question is, all these new technology mean that the employees have the tool to communicate. So are the employers buying this equipment for the staff? For example, like laptop, tablet, phone, or telephone bill, for example, paying for the bill for the telephone?
Trust the lawyer to ask that question. It's an extremely good question and one that we've had to deal with in our office. Some of our staff don't have the equipment at home. During this lockdown period, we've actually transferred a whole lot of boxes home to staff. As it happens, Vietnam's obsessed with the internet and all our staff have decent internet connections at home, which is amazing. So it hasn't even come up, and they've all offered to cover those services as long as we cover, you know, the access to the server at the office, etc. But I think that's one we're increasingly going to have to follow, and I think you may see a huge transfer in the way that we purchase equipment. That it is mobile and it can transfer home, and in fact you may see dual-ended telco bills where you buy subscriptions for all your staff rather than just for your office place. Answer is I don't know yet, Min.
Can I just add to that as well, that our office, we've always had this idea that we go visit clients with mobiles. For every person in the office, even including the receptionist, always has a laptop, and we are mobile people. That's been a principle in our particular business. So this change has resulted in no additional equipment required for our office. And that's just a cultural thing, again, about businesses. But many businesses who have had desktop focus, if they're graphic processing independent, if there's security issues, they've been concerned about access, it's a very good question, Ben, because I think there will be additional costs. There will be additional imposts on those businesses going forward, and they'll need to reconsider that approach. And I think this idea of desktop computers tying people to a desk may change. This may be these flexible desks. It may be that we move towards a lot more hot desking. People do have the option to work at home because it can work more so than before. It was a dream. Now is it the reality? Yeah, so it's a pivot point, I think, in society about how we plan, equip, use IT and spend money to make sure that we can work well.
I think you're also going to see a little bit of a change towards salary sacrifice for computer equipment for home use. It's going to be a bit like the company car. Yes, you've got a certain package and we'll buy you a car tax-free or whatever, or a car and drive or whatever it is. It'll be like, if you want to upgrade your computer, you know, it will come out and we can get the tax benefits of it being office equipment, etc. So I think you'll see a change into salary sacrificing, much like it used to be a long time ago in Australia with the car, here with car service, etc., etc.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think that is interesting that now we have to adapt and change, also test a lot of different solutions at the same time. So I think there's another question that related, also kind of like add on that sharing earlier, quite similar like Kevin's question about, you know, now we are working online and remotely working, so we save time and energy on commuting. So how do you feel about after the COVID, if people want to continue the same way, of course with social interaction sometime in the workplace? So how your thought on that?
I'll start on that one. And I think, you know, as has been mentioned, people, there's a lot of time saving involved in working remotely for people that have to travel long distances to work. You've also got less meetings, and let's face it, some of these meetings are not very productive anyway. But I think the mindset in organizations about productivity, which should have been something that's happening years ago, should come into play, in that you should be measuring your workers' performance on the productivity rather than that they're sitting at a desk for 40 hours a week. So if companies became more productivity focused, goal focused, then at the end of the week, you ask your staff, well, have you done all the tasks you're supposed to do for the week? So I wouldn't, obviously you need to come to the office, but I think, there should be more of a focus on results and on productivity than rather just having people sitting in offices, and in many cases they're sitting there not doing, or not in many cases, but in some cases sitting there not doing very much. So I think we need to really look at how work is done, and to, where possible, look at how people, what's the best way to actually get the work done. I mean, we're in a brilliant situation in Ho Chi Minh City now. We don't have any traffic. I have to drive across the city this morning after this, and there'll be no traffic. But maybe some people working from home some of the time, or a lot of the time, could reduce a lot of this traffic, because you don't need, I remember, I'll just finish quickly. I remember many years ago in Australia, and my boss asked one of the staff, what are you doing? And he says, I'm writing a report. And he says, when is it due? And he said, Friday. And he says, why are you coming all the way into the office to write a report that you could write at home? I want to see you on Friday with a finished report. And told him to stay at home for the next couple of days.
Yeah, it's very interesting and so true, sharing, Brian. I think this kind of crisis make us rethink a lot of how we conduct work at the workplace and how we can be more productive around that. How about Matthew and Matt? Do you have any other add on that question?
Yeah, line managers. Actually, I just might let Matt jump in on this one first.
I don't know, I've got a lot to add, actually, to be honest, after sort of what Brian has said. I think it's right. I think this sort of, the new normal in some ways is how we are going to have to change and adapt, and we're going to have to think differently about things. And this, will there be more people working at home? Is it the right thing? Office where people need to be, and that example Brian gave of someone's got a report to do. Why are you coming to see me? I don't really care where you are. Where are you productive? Work where you're productive, deliver what you need to deliver. And I don't think I've got much else to add from that. I think Matt, just if you're comfortable now.
I think Matt hit the button. It's where you're productive. Of course, there will be people who want to continue to work from home. Unfortunately, some of those will be people who get to hide at home and pretend they're being productive and they're not. But if you are more productive from home, I see that, yes, that will change, and people will say, can I work from home? And as long as their line managers are on top of it and can make sure that they are productive, and make sure that, not so much make sure, but note that they are productive, there's no reason why people might not continue to work from home, with the odd, trip into the office to interact for a meeting or a social gathering or whatever. And in fact, you may see it being encouraged as an effort to reduce rental, because floor space is obviously so expensive, especially if you have an office in District 1. So yes, I think there are changes afoot. There always are when we have these watershed moments, and it's up to us to be agile and to respond to them.
But just on that, I think the other part you just touched on there, and Brian did, was this leadership approach. You must have leadership. You must have corporate structure in your organisation to monitor those people, to make sure that if someone isn't dealing with it, is hiding, is trying to hide their productivity. So that leadership approach, that structure approach, that touch points, as we've talked about earlier, all coming together to make that possible is important. You can't just assume it's going to work. So it does take effort in that as well.
I just saw a comment that made me laugh. It's just kind of, I think it's the same person has asked, so less personality conflict possibly in the office. Yes and no. It's very hard to manage personality conflict often that takes leadership, as Matt said. And if you're not seeing that personality conflict, if it's hidden behind personal text messages between two people who think both are an idiot each, that's going to be harder to manage. That said, I've become aware of personality conflicts because of personal emails that have been forwarded to me, which I didn't want to know about sometimes. So that one remains open. I think there will always be personality conflict, whether it's online, virtual, and if you want to see proof of that, go to Facebook and read the comments sometime. There will be conflicts, and sometimes being anonymous makes it even worse, because people don't actually have to face up to that person in the office and get on with life.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Huh? I think the conflict won't go anywhere. They from workplace to online.
We're still human, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're human anyway. So I think we don't have any other question from the audience. So I think I will have one last question for all panelists before we wrap up this discussion. I think this question is very interesting for all the panelists to share with us for the audience here today, is that if you have any practical advice that to help the business to overcome the problem working virtually, what would be the advices?
Sorry, Kelly, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so I think that, a lot of audience here want to learn more about the advices for like practical advice that you've been through and implemented right now from your experience. Is there any practical advice that you would like to give it to help the business people overcome the problem of working online and virtually at the moment?
I'll start, if that's okay, because I've been thrown in on the deep end over the last 3 weeks on it. I think, we've talked about technology, and for me it was, well, what technology is out there? Have a look at it. You can watch YouTube, you can read about it, go to the website. So ask yourself, what do I need to do? How can I do it in the new environment? And then figure out what technology and what methods and you can use to get over it. So as I say, I used, of course, Google Drive for a sharing of documents, and I used actually Skype to run the classroom. Now there's other ones as well as Skype, but find out from your friends, your colleagues online, and we've had some good advice today. But you have to think, what is it I'm trying to achieve, and what's the best way in this new environment to actually achieve it? We have to think outside the box a lot now.
Thank you, Brian. How about Matthew and Matt? Do you have any sharing on that question?
Matt, can you go first? I'll just finish up if that's okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so the first thing is don't reinvent the wheel. If you're using Office 365, use Teams. If you already using Skype, use Skype. If you're already using Zoom, use Zoom. If you're already using Viber, WhatsApp, or any plethora of things, keep using those the way you were using them before. You might consider adding a few things that you don't have. If you need to do this kind of presentation like we're doing now, you might look at some of the several webinar softwares. But realize, as I said before, what you're doing is you're transitioning a physical workspace to a virtual workspace. The rules are the same. You've still got to be polite. You've still got to communicate. You've still got to stay in touch. You've still got to hand over information. This is more than anything, it's called online communication. We are communicating, so you need to be there. And that doesn't matter what kind of software you've got if you don't use it. It doesn't matter what kind of software you've got if you're rude. It doesn't matter what kind of software you've got if you don't pass over the relevant information. So practically, I always like to tell a story and have a narrative that's part of my process. Imagine what you'd be doing in an office and then find a virtual solution to replace that. If you can do that, you're going to be fine. So don't panic about what's the very best software. It's just like, I need to chat to someone. What do you feel comfortable chatting to someone when you're not in the room? Oh, I don't really like FaceTime because it makes me feel uncomfortable. I prefer to chat by text, then chat by text. If you find it hard to read people because you can't see their faces, then make sure you've got some video software. You're going to have to do what suits you. Best to use the software you're already familiar with. And if you are going to introduce new software, try not to introduce too many at once. You know, ask around your team. I mean, the whole point of this is a team. I doubt there'd be any team of, you know, sort of 7 or more that at least one person in there doesn't have an opinion about what their favorite video chat software is. You know, the good thing, if there's someone who's got that opinion in your organization and you don't have that opinion, let them lead it. Let them champion the software, because they'll know how to work it and how to teach everyone and turn them into the teacher. And that way you're empowering them, but you're empowering your staff through a common experience that you've already got within your staff. So use what you've got. That's my one big takeaway.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, no, I just think that was perfect segue. The idea of the software is a tool. It's not the being. It's not the communication itself. You have to communicate, and this comes down to sort of this idea of leadership. If you lead the communication, if you lead the style, if you are in charge of the organization or a department or a team, the culture you set, the way you communicate, and the constant communication, the appropriate communication, using the tools and techniques, the software, as Matt said, that's available, that works, that people like, it's the leadership. If you lead the organization with what you expect, what you want, and you show positive, and in times of this, difficult times, people are nervous, uncomfortable, be positive, show that it can be done. People react. People want to work with successful people, and if they can't see you, touch you, sort of in sort of environment type approach, the virtual way you communicate and the way that you lead that communication, and so to make sure that you're looking after people, making sure people are well, and that everyone in your organisation who have a leadership role follows that approach, it'll work. And my last thing is, don't overthink it. It's not about overthinking it. It's about being creative. It's about leadership, use technology. It's about touch points, etc. But don't overthink it. If there's a process that works, use it. And don't have to sort of go to town and saying, I've got to reinvent my entire way I operate my business. No, it's just sometimes simple is more effective in many ways.
Yeah, wow. Thank you all the panelists to share the advices. I think that give me a lot of input for my conclusion from the sharing today. So we now move to the conclusion part, and I just want to summarize all the point that the speaker just shared earlier and for the question of the audience. So I think, you know, like as we already understand and also listen to the speaker, communication is always critical, whether it's offline or online, right? So the point now is to first set up the goal of our communication, and we need to be prepared, very clear about our communication, be consistent, and also throughout about our communication. And during this crisis time, I believe that everybody feels sometimes disconnected and also feel demotivated. So that's why it's important to have that kind of engage with your team, be responsive when it needs to, and also creative, right? So we have a lot of way to test a new idea with our platform, with the new platform, with the new technology now. And it's very important to be positive during these times of the crisis. And also mindfulness is important point is, you know, whether the tool that we use and how we do the communication, and even the mindful about the recipient of our communication, whether they like that tool or not, whether they like that communication or not, for example. So it's great to check with your team whether that is appropriate. And also important point that somebody raised earlier about, you know, setting the boundaries between home and work, because now we working every day at home now. So that's why it's important to have that kind of boundaries, or maybe set up that boundaries so the team will feel not too overwhelmed, too stressed about work all the time at home. So yeah, I think after the crisis, the key point or the key conclusion is that we need to adapt and change from all the experiment we do during this crisis time right now at the moment. So it maybe is a good opportunity for us to change and adapt to the new situation, the new kind of like normal. And I hope that after, you know, we back to work and after the social distance and the virus is gone, we be back to be connect more meaningfully. I think because, I mean, from this experiment or trying this time, we will realize more some meeting actually really not necessary. So sometimes we just need to send a meeting or not for everybody to keep in touch or to keep informed about what's happening with the company or the projects. And also, you know, like Brian just shared earlier about sometimes we don't even need everybody in the office. So sometimes we can be more flexible and mindful about where people are, and as long as that's productive for all the team members. Yeah, so I think that is my conclusion for the sharing today. I thank all the speakers that sharing all the insight and great advices and experience from your own experience working with the virtual team and online, and how to set up the communication and leadership to make sure people feel connected and feel motivated during this challenging time. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, just before signing off, I'd like to thank the attendees. We've had one or two drop off, but actually I think at the most two. For all dozen of you to pop along and stick on for an hour and a half, that's really impressive, and thanks so much for listening to us talk.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you all the participants to be patient with us for 1 hour and a half. That's not easy, right? So I think that's the end of our sharing now. So I think the last slide would be just a quick reminder about you know, AusChams and AusCham members. So if you interested in become membership as AusCham, so please reach out to AusCham or Simon here. And also, if you're interested in learning more about Lean, please feel free to drop me an email. Happy to talk more. And yeah, we welcome any donation, generous donation from you too. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and thank you, presenters, and thank you very much, Kelly. Have a great day.